Oh, it's cold this morning. So I need to clean up my kitchen, obviously, for preparation day. This is where Babe and I are held hostage effectively in prison, but it could be worse. Right, little mama? Right, mama? Look at you, cold. Yeah. It's like up to 44, I think, but it was 40 when we woke up. About to light this fire. Whew. It's cold. Very thankful for some hot coffee. Okay. Today's preparation day, Shabbat Shalom. Have a little wheeze this morning. That's fun. Part of my wheeze is I've quit cannabis, but yesterday my back was hurting so bad that I actually reluctantly had a little, and I did sleep better last night and slept pretty heavily. But I woke up with a little wheeze this morning and just felt a little heavy and just with more awareness that I am happier, feel better, feel more clear, just in general without it. So I'm thankful for that. May not have put enough killing on this morning, but we'll see. I think you could hear that wheeze. Yeah. My skills are not as good as they think they are, and that's in general, life in general. It's like, I think that in general we have a dilemma of watching something or witnessing something and then thinking that we can do it, like fighting on UFC, or making a fire, watch a bunch of bushcraft videos, you think you understand, it looks easy, and then you're in a cottage and your lighter dies and all of a sudden you're like, why doesn't this fire want to start? Generally what I'm learning is the smaller fire, you need to let the embers get going and get burned before you put too much on it. This might have too much on it already. It needs to be airy, it needs the airflow. I'm using some bark. Turn that upside down so I can breathe better. And this is all, well, some of this is a little damp, but this is super light. I thought this would just go right off because it's super light and dry. Well, this is dismal. Actually, I have a good idea. I took some sawdust and added a little wax. I'm embarrassed by my kitchen, but whatever. Don't have running water, so I usually let the dishes accumulate a little bit before I do them. So I took some of this sawdust and melted an old candle and just to see how that would work in terms of, oh, there we got a little something going on under there. Let's flip that over now that we got a head amber. Oh, didn't like that. There's that. Don't want to lose that. There we go. Put it right on there. Well, my lungs sound awful. Most of that's just the cold, but like I said, it did use some cannabis for the relief in my back. My back does feel better. I also took 2 Tylenol. But it was also setting up the bed differently. I had the mattress on the pull-out couch frame and with those bars, and also it was like angled down a little bit. I don't know why they do that, but I was at a friend's on his pull-out recently, and they always seem to like tilt down. So that, what I'm learning right now, looks like wood that would hold a flame or hold a hot ember well. Like if you want to transport fire, I know that they used to like basically use a mushroom, have a hot ember and transport fire. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it just looks like it's holding the heat without erupting in flames. So that's just interesting because it's pretty lightweight wood. I think I don't even know what kind of tree it is. It's just that wax fell off. Yeah, I think that gives me an opportunity to make a point. Like, I'm not here on YouTube to be some expert. I'm here to share as I learn and what I've learned, and to testify to my experience and to life and to His Word. But yeah, I'm pretty much a rookie here, maybe even less than a rookie. I mean, usually I can start a fire a little bit better than this. I was thinking it was gonna take off a little bit more than that, but so I'm gonna take a little of that with a piece of one of these. Some of the sawdust to see what this does. It wasn't a citronella candle, but it smells like one of those citronella candles, so that's not the best. I don't know, maybe it's like a lemongrass candle. I do have some kindling over here, so it's not like I'm a complete idiot. There we go. See if this waxy sawdust does anything. Oh, it's good for putting out a fire. Well, there we go. It's great for putting out a fire. Oh, gosh. I'm going to have a little bit of hot coffee. That coffee is so good, hot. I'm so thankful for hot coffee in the morning. Oh, here I am. Oh, yeah. Take the tension off my piss poor fire over here. Well, I hope this proves the point that if you're in a cottage where you have a semi-controlled environment, it's pretty controlled, and a fire doesn't take off that easy, it's a good awareness that outdoors where it's wet and or even colder and your fingers are cold, like I'm cold here, my toes are already cold and uncomfortable. But can I set this down someplace? Sorry about that. What to do? I should have been prepared, but I'm a complete amateur. I zoomed in. That was good. All right. How about that wheeze? Wow, I'm actually really kind of surprised myself. Part of this must just be like for the camera because usually I would say my fire is already lit by now, even if I am an amateur. All right. I'm also like under cold pressure because my toes are cold and my fingers are starting to get cold, and baby's very cold behind me, tucked in with her Carhartt and her little fleece, and she is just trying to cover up. You want some more blankie? How's that, baby? Oof. Okay. I'm not trying to prove a point. I'm just trying to start a fire, so. I think sometimes I hear what's called my Yetzer Hara or my evil inclinations voice and like my ex-wife's voice. Because I don't think there's anybody more critical of me than myself. Then I would say second up would be her. So sometimes I just hear her voice in my mind commenting. I mean, ultimately you want this under all the wood, but I'm just trying to get this going, so. There we go. I think that sawdust wax is going to burn, but it just needs a little heat behind it. A little more than what I had. This is so like light. This stuff right here should just, I thought that would just burn like quick and hot. So, oh, there we go. Feel that right away. It's amazing, like the energy that fire puts off, because that just that little flame right there, I can feel on my hands. I could use some of the good stuff. Use a couple pieces of that. Stop messing around. Fire's beautiful. Beautiful, functional, dangerous. And in Hebrew, Aish, which I believe is directly connected to where we get the word ash. Ash would be a form, potentially, of Hebrew, but that to me would phonetically be more likely the ayin plus the sheen, ash or ash. I don't see a sound, but it could be wrong. I think all of the sounds are probably incorporated somehow in the language, but I don't believe it's a principal sound. I think it's an ah. I mean, is it harder to say ah or ah? Ah seems to be like the most natural sound. There we go. There we go, mama. There we go, mama. Get this fire going for her. She loves to lay next to the chair. And the heat's so nice. She's a good snuggler too. Some of this has the bark on it, which helps a little bit. Oh yeah, let me get another sip of this coffee. The toes are cold. Whew. Some of my children's art, one of the pieces fell off. I gotta put it back up. This is a precious gift that was given to me by my daughter. Her handprints with the little branch that she found for me. At first I had the branch saved, and then one of my past loves had her do the hands, and then framed it for me so nicely for a present. Some Jay Alders art, my sister's hands, a couple pieces that my grandmother gave me. We've got some water stains, nice beautiful water stains on the cottage roof. A classic that I got from my mom, and then it just felt like it fit there, so I haven't given it to her yet. A painting that I made, painting that I painted. My dad's old trick skis. And the lake. Oh, it looks nice with the sun out there, but it's cold. Crisp and cold. Thankful that we haven't had precipitation other than rain, because once we have that, I can't even really get up the hill other than walking. It's steep, and I can't really drive, at least legally, so I've been getting rides. People come down. I can walk up and meet them at the top of the hill. So it's not like, I can't still have access to the world, but it's already a challenge as it is. And intimidating for people to come here, even when the road's clear, but when it's got weather on it, even more so. 20 minutes of basically really poor fire starting, cold toes, a little coffee, and the best part is Mama. Hi, you. Hey, you, Snuggle Bunny. Oh, her skin, her little fur is so soft and silky too. So nice to pet. You're such a good girl. You're a little pip, but you're a good girl. Yes, you are. Very independent, very expressive, and also I can tell she's getting a little bit more attached to me, more accepting of me. She was my dad's, so he was really longing for affection and connection and touch, and really was not getting any in his life. Which is so sad because he was really basically dying for the last 5 years. And I would say it was not a good death. Not a good death. Painful one. He certainly had time, extra time. I don't know, for me, it's just, I can sit here and watch the fire and the subtle sounds, and just, it's meditative and cathartic for me. So maybe someone out there will appreciate it. I think deep down, most of the reason behind my YouTube is in the hopes that my children will have an interest in my story and my life at some point, and will have opportunity to know me a little better through this. I used to be really caught up in social media on Instagram back in my Rhino Surfer days. Had a decent size community / following, 33,000 followers, and then that effectively was dried up, so to speak. Definitely was early shadow banned, and saw things like, for example, my top video I think that I shared or reposted was like 1 million views, and then I think I would get like on average maybe a couple hundred likes on a post, and then all of a sudden I think my last post was like something like 40 likes. The video with my dad shaving my beard was, I think, over 500,000 views and over 15,000 likes, and I think like there was a lot, I think maybe like over 1,000 comments. It's amazing how few people actually just click the button and like something. It's weird. Humans are weird. We're not very helpful to one another. Except when we're on the precipice of destruction, and then people seem to wake up and be more active and involved and engaged with one another's well-being. We're weird like that. All right, I'm gonna put my toes up here just to get some warmth on those. Get another swig of this coffee. Oh yeah, I gotta put the top on that because it's starting to lose heat. So we're roughing it here basically. We've got no water. We've got some heat, obviously. A friend kindly and graciously dropped off a little heater. I do have electricity, so that's a plus for now. I'm surprised she hasn't tried to turn that off. But I think that would be a more blatant offense, just where she's more comfortable with the subtleties. Just got some storage stuff up here, some backup wood, recycling, and some garbage. My dad's unfinished projects out here. My truck, thought I was going to build a camper on the back of that truck, and ran into some design. I just started building basically without a lot of thought on the design, and then I got into it and was like, oh man, what am I doing? Yeah, it's cold. It's got some ice, and that's a little kind of like quasi-well for the house up above. Well, I think that's an old bomb casing, actually. It had writing on it, but it was out of the water, and then somebody put it in the water. I pulled it out when it got shallow a little bit. I've got some beautiful trees up around behind us. Yeah, it's cold. I gotta get back inside. Some bad fruit. Oh, it's cold. Close that for some heat, retainment. Get a lot of cold air that comes through there. All right. Baby, hi. Hi. Should we read Proverbs? Let's read Proverbs. Use my gluing my Vans back together. Super disappointed with Vans. Those are pretty much like not even a year old and they're falling apart. Oh. Oof. Gotta be careful not to squish Mama. Get those toes warmed up. Alright, today is the 13th, and I know that we're not really on the Gregorian calendar, but I'll just keep it simple. So today's the 13th, and I'll go to the 13th of Proverbs. I think this is a new American Standard Bible that I'm reading from. Father, bless us according to your word and your spirit. Bless this day, sanctify it, keep your people safe. Pour out your spirit upon us, and I pray for mercy for the lost, the broken, the afflicted, the suffering, the lonely, the humble. In your son's name I pray. Amen. A wise son accepts his father's discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke or correction. From the fruit of the man's mouth he enjoys good, but the desire of the treacherous is violence. The one who guards his mouth preserves his life. The one who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the soul of the diligent is made fat. A righteous man hates falsehood, but a wicked man acts disgustingly and shamefully. Righteousness guards the one whose way is blameless, blameless. Righteousness guards the one whose way is blameless, but wickedness or lawlessness subverts the sinner. There is one who pretends to be rich but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor but has great wealth. The ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor hears no rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoice, but the lamp of the wicked goes out. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked goes out. Through presumption comes nothing but strife. Wow, that's a powerful statement, especially in my life right now. But with those who receive counsel, wisdom, wealth obtained by fraud dwindles, but the one who gathers by labor increases it. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. The one who despises the word will be in debt to it, but the one who fears the commandment will be rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a foundation or fountain of life, to turn aside from the snares of death. Good understanding produces favor, but the way of the treacherous is hard. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool displays folly. A wicked messenger falls into adversity, but a faithful envoy brings healing. The poverty and shame will come to him who neglects discipline, but he who regards reproof will be honored. Desire realized is sweet to the soul, but it is an abomination to fools to depart from evil. He who walks with the wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Adversity pursues sinners, but the righteous will be rewarded with prosperity. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of a sinner is stored up for the righteous. Abundant food is in fallow ground of the poor. Abundant food is in the fallow ground of the poor, but it is swept away by injustice. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the stomach of the wicked is in want. So when I read that, it's interesting because I would say most people would look at my life and say, yeah, that guy's got a lot of adversity. And this just talked about adversity following, the sinner. And then also another flip side of that is when we read, for example, like the book of Sirach, it says, "My son, when you set your intention to serve Yahuwah, be prepared to be brought to a low estate, for gold and silver are refined by fire, but acceptable men by adversity." So sometimes it's hard to know, am I an acceptable man, or am I just struggling and being challenged in life because of lawlessness? What I kind of hear inside as a response to that is what I've learned and known about our enemy too, that there's a part of life that when we are just living asleep, so to speak, and living in the world according to the world system, that doors are just kind of open for us because we're not a threat. A threat meaning bringing light to where it's dark. And I realized a long time ago that an enemy is not going to waste time and precious resources or resources on a non-threat, even if it's flying under the colors of the enemy, right? Like, if you have two cities or two towns, and one is full of men that are trained and have weapons, and one is, men who are, not war of the warrior type or mentality, and let's call them alpha versus betas, you're gonna pretty much leave the betas to themselves, because they'll be manageable and controllable, but you're going to focus your efforts in terms of violence and war on those that pose the threat. And so intuitively we can recognize that sometimes we're going to go through stuff because we represent a threat. In my family life, it appears that I'm one of the breaker of the pattern, the one that steps away from the family curse. And so of course that's a threat, because the curse represents lawlessness and death when we don't wake up from it. I come from a very abusive family. Physical, emotional abuse, neglect. I think that my uncles seem to have separated themselves in some sense from that. But I also don't know them very well. I see some of the other aspects of the family nature in their lives, and then principally the apostasy, which is widespread in my family. So I hope that my cousins are also part of the process of coming out of the lifestyle and the behavior that is a curse to us. And I feel like I see that in terms of how they interact with their families, their children. I don't see that level of abusiveness that I saw in my grandfather and in my father. But I do see the apostasy still participating in the ways of the world. And I think, in my view, that's one of the reasons that I think that I'm having more challenges. I think I'm kind of like the black sheep of the family in some senses, because I don't mirror, I don't reflect what's normal and acceptable to them. For me, when I read Matthew 5:17 through 20, I see and hear something different than what I've heard spoken in churches. And I believe this is one of the reasons that there's such a conflict between modern or Christianity and Judaism, which I would say are both religious constructs where men have added to his word, and they both have issues. One's gone to the left, one's gone to the right. And to me, what I read and what I learn from Messiah is he's that middle ground, that straight ground that represents the actual word of the Father. And I would say there's one kind of topic that seems to me, it seems at least to stand out, and that's divorce. Because in the Torah, if a man gives a woman a writ of divorce or a sefer divorce, I forget the Hebrew word for it, but she's effectively free to remarry. But yet, Messiah says that if you divorce your woman, you cause her to commit adultery, and if you remarry, you commit adultery. And I think a lot of people interpret that as if the relationship with the second woman, perhaps potentially, if let's say you had one wife, you divorce her, you remarry. And I don't think that's actually the root of the remarriage, because in the Torah, a man can have multiple wives. Although I don't know that that's the ideal plan of creation, but it's more of like a circumstantial thing. Like, what if there's like 3 men and there's 10 women, or like 5 women? Do just 5 of those women or 3 of those women get a husband, and the rest are just SOL out of luck? And I feel like for women, if you were one of, let's say, 5 women and there's only 3 men, that as far as you know in the world, let's just say for the example, that they would not want their kind of sisters to have the benefit of a man, that they would want that all to themselves. And to me, that just, as a man, that seems short-sighted, and also just selfish, because the relationship will always be as strong as the 2 parties in the relationship. And I believe no matter what, even if there was another person in a relationship, if you approach it with love and with goodness, the relationship that you'll have between you is goodness. And as a man, I don't see, one person in my life being able to diminish my relationship with another. It's diminished by those that I'm in a relationship with. And in for example, Jacob or Yaakov's life, like, how could you not have a problem with a woman that betrayed you and lied to you and cheated at you, and you thought you were marrying her sister, and it ends up not being her, and you just worked 7 years. You literally just worked 7 years of your life, and you're gonna now cheat me and like marry me under a fraudulent situation and expect that I'm not gonna have a problem with that? Doesn't make any sense. So I understand why there was issues between Yaakov and Leah. But I think under different circumstances, let's just say his preference was Leah, but then Lavan or Laban said, look, your brother Ashu or Esau didn't show up. Would you take both of them? You might have, your inclination is towards the one that you naturally have some more connection to or even desire for. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's her beauty, maybe it's personality. But if that second woman was to be kind and gracious and loving and affectionate and a source of warmth to that man, he's going to naturally respond positively to that. So anyway, that was a digression, but Matthew, when I contrasting like my view versus my family's view, when I read through and read Matthew, getting to, let's say, chapter 5, I'm just going to go back to verse 10, but the focus is really 17 to 20. But in verse 10 it says, "Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness." And that kind of ties into my life, because if I'm getting this blowback, because I've chosen to honor Sabbath and I've chosen to turn away from pornography and drinking and, just being generally worldly, so to speak, it says here that we're blessed for that. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely on account of me. So an account of him could be, it could be saying that you follow him. It could also, I believe even more important than that is living as he's called us to live, and then being persecuted because of how you live, living in righteousness. Rejoice and be glad. Hallelujah. For your reward in heaven is great. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, how will it be made salty again? It is good for nothing anymore, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do men light a lamp and put it under the peck measure. I don't know what a peck measure is, but there's but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. And so the church wants to always say, like, we're not saved by, works, but by faith. And that, his salvation is a gift. Yes, of course, it's a gift. But the point is that he wants us, he created us to be his vessels here on earth and establish his kingdom according to his will, his word, his principles, his character here on this earth, as the vessels that he created and put us in domain over the earth, or domain or dominion. This is where I'll read 16 again. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So they're supposed to see us doing good, living according to his Torah, his instructions, his voice, his commands, his judgments. And then the world is supposed to see us and glorify him because they see him in us. And this is why I would say Israel, first of all, why it's pronounced incorrectly, because it's not functioning as it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be. It's literally, Yisrael, I would say, is to do his straightness. Straightness of Yah, the straightness of El. To do El's straightness, or to do the straightness of El. 17. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. And this is incredible because right there, the church tends to take everything he just said and throw it out the window and say, oh, fulfill. The law is fulfilled. It's done. No, that's clearly not the context of what he's said in this first verse. I have not come to end or abolish or do away with the law or the prophets. And what are the prophets? What were the prophets' function? The prophets' function were to come to the people and say, Teshuvah, return to your father's house. Go back. Stop what you're doing. Go back and do what you're supposed to be doing. That is the whole point of Teshuvah. There is no redemption outside of Teshuvah, repentance. And Israel, in its disobedient state, it's living as it's functioning as a lawless nation. It's not even a nation, as a lawless nation state, is bringing all of this violence upon itself. And yet you don't hear this in the Torah community. In the Torah community, Israel is the victim, and the world is just persecuting us. But his word says that the world will not persecute us when we live rightly. Who was persecuting Abraham? All of the Goyim, all of the other nations around Abraham blessed him. Even when he was in Egypt and was not honest about Sarah being his wife, because she was his half sister, and it almost caused the Pharaoh, the Parah, to commit a sin and to be with her, and there was a curse on the house so that they would realize something was wrong. He sent him away blessed and said, "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" So it's not. This is such a gross error in the world, and it's reflected both in Israel and the church. And the church is not the assembly. Okay, people, they want to take this word assembly and make it this thing called a church, an organized religion. They want to make it the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church or the body of the church. That's not what the assembly is. The assembly are those who really follow him and walk with him, and we are supposed to come together, and unfortunately that's not something that we do well. And that's one of the reasons that we're struggling. It's like a divorced or divided family. When we come together as a family, we're blessed because there's strength in numbers. We each represent a different gift, and when we bring our gifts together, we reap the reward for those gifts. I know that one of my gifts is serving others. Like literally, when I put effort, whether it's a company or someone else's well-being, I see fruit in a way that I don't see when I try to do that for my own life. And I don't claim to be a Levite. I just found out recently someone called me a Levite or a Luim several years ago, and I don't know if that's true or not, but there is something about the pattern of my life that seems to reflect some kind of connection there to priesthood, because what is a priest about? They're not about being lifted up above the rest, because it's not like some title that we're like, oh, I'm a Levite. No, you serve a function, and your function is to be facilitating greater connection between our Father and his Son, which he calls Israel, Yisrael. And so, just like Israel is in apostasy, not walking in the Torah, that the Yahudim have literally held to the Torah for all these years. They have it. They've had intensive study of it, and yet they don't look back and see that the error of the 10 brothers against Joseph and be able to invert that and say, oh, today there's just one tribe, Yehuda, so we should be going out looking for our brother, which we didn't do when it was 10-1. But now that it's 1-10 or 1-12, 1-11, go bring your brothers home. So he's literally saying, I did not come to abolish the law. Or the prophets, who were literally the reinforcement of the law, the witness to the law. He's saying, I didn't come to abolish that, but to fulfill it, to do it. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one thing, two things, not one of the smallest letter or strokes shall pass away from the law until all is accomplished. This is powerful, because he's not saying even a word or a letter. He is literally saying a punctuation. Not even a punctuation of the law is going to change. Listen, apostate. Listen, those who say that they love him. When he says, if you say you love me but you do not keep my commands, you make yourself a liar. A liar. Will any liar inherit the kingdom of heaven, which is the house of truth? No, you can't go in there with falsehood, or of falsehood, or in relationship with falsehood, or as falsehood. You cannot enter a place of purity or truth when you are unclean. Heaven and earth are both still here. Whoever then annuls or ends one of the least of these commandments and so teaches others shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Okay. Mark aka watchman, whatever. You want to try to say that the Torah is all about keeping the commandments, eating clean, and this thing called royal law, telling your brother about their error. It says here, if you do diminish even the least, okay, I'll use Tsitsi as an example, that you will be least in the kingdom of heaven. Wearing tassels is a sign to our brother and to the world of him, his law, and that we are wearing this to acknowledge it. It also alerts people to look closer at how we're living. Do I see a difference? What's this guy? What are these tassels all about that this person's wearing? So, pardon me 1 second, I gotta grab some wood. Mark, aka Watchman, wake up. Yeah, this is a brother calling you to wake up, homie. Because I watched over 20 of your videos and I heard that you have awareness of the word. But when I came into your camp, there was no brotherly love. There was no reception. You guarded your little fiefdom, and you were, as soon as I said anything about a gift or having a gift, and I didn't say that to promote myself, I said that to say, hey, I was offering my gifts, not to elevate myself, but to say, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about the language, and there's a lot in that language that we need to understand and learn from. Not to glorify myself, glorify him. And I saw quickly the spirit, your spirit, and your follower's spirit. And I'm telling you, it's not one of brotherly love. And if you don't repent, you're going to have even more rude awakening in your life. Because I see that you don't teach all the law, but you want to say this. There's this special thing called the royal law, which in the Greek, it just means the sovereign law. It's something that you're taking and twisting to sound unique and special, just like you say that you don't have the key of David and nobody else does, blah, blah, blah. Sunrise, day begin, those types of things. Yes, you have some knowledge. But Brother Paul says, if we have even the knowledge of all things, these great things, these great mysteries, even the tongues of angels, but we do not have love, we're nothing. We're nothing. So, as people, when we are seeking the truth, when we are seeking light, when we are seeking him, when we are desperate, when we recognize that this world's not on the right path, that there's something wrong, when we see it in the churches, oh wait, why aren't you keeping the Sabbath? Why are you putting up a Christmas tree in your church? Why are you having Halloween decorations? Why are you having Easter eggs and candy and these things at your place of worship, when these are pagan practices mixed into modern society? And we're supposed to have separation of church and state, and yet we don't, because right on the government website, they put up these things on their page, holiday decorations and whatnot, And it's not separation of church and state, it's fraud. So we need to have discernment, because the Bible says we know one another by what? Our fruit and our spirit. So our attitude is represented by our spirit, and our fruit is what we say and what we do. For I say to you that unless your righteousness surpasses that as of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Now here it gets right into this about being angry with your brother. This is amazing, because I'm sitting here talking about loving your brother, and what does he go on to say? You've heard that the ancients were told, "You shall not commit murder," but whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court, and whoever shall say to his brother Raka, which is basically calling you a fool, empty-headed, shall be guilty before the Supreme Court, and whoever shall say you fool, maybe I'm wrong there, because Raka, let's look up Raka. I think Raka means evil. But if whoever says you fool shall be guilty before enough to go into the hellfire, the hell of fire. Therefore, if therefore you are presenting your offering, so here he is, here's the Messiah saying, if you're presenting your offering, which is going to the altar. So did he end sacrificial offerings if he's telling you when you take your offering? Therefore, if you're presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there at the altar and go your way and be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. When we just read this slowly and go word by word, it says so much. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. He's establishing two things, the law and the prophets. He's establishing that. Right, the first thing he says, do not think that I came to do away with these things. Therefore, what's the inverse of do away? He's establishing. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. What does the word fulfill mean? To do, to embody, to exemplify. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, two witnesses, not the smallest letter or stroke, another two witnesses, shall pass away from the law until all is accomplished. Is all accomplished? No. Whoever therefore annuls one of the least of these commandments and so teaches others shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Again, two contrasting things, too. Least, great. Interestingly enough, though, they're both in heaven. So one might be teaching some of these things in ignorance, but is still pointing people towards him, encouraging people towards him. And I would say this is one good thing I will give the brother credit for. Mark at Watchman, Watchman Wake Up. I will say he is spreading regard for the commands. He's spreading regard for eating clean. But at the same time, I see him spreading this false spirit towards brothers where people are just coming at people with this script. They don't know who you are. They don't know how you live your life. And they're telling you, repent, eat clean, get rid of the holidays, obey the commands, repent. They don't even know who you are. So that's an error. That's something that should be refined. And when you keep yourself in a bubble, Mark, and you don't have other people than your followers come in and fellowshipping with you, you have blind spots. You have blind spots, just like I have blind spots, which is one of the reasons that I came to you in the first place as a brother, was to help get rid of my blind spots, was for you to add to me and for me to add to you. And if you don't think that I have anything to add to you, then you're an egomaniac. But I came because I want fellowship and refinement. Iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass away from the law until all is accomplished. Whoever therefore annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that unless your righteousness surpasses those of the scribes or Pharisees, who looked good on the outside, but didn't always necessarily have the right attitude or spirit, but they were dotting their I's and crossing their T's, so to speak, in the written aspect of spirituality. For I say to you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Where is the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven, metaphorically, is represented above us. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We have this sense of up being higher, is higher, being above. A child looks up to its parent, therefore their status, as well as it's a reflection of status. But a child and a parent still have even ground on where they stand. When we hear Messiah's instructions on how to pray, what does he say? Our Father, didn't say to pray to Messiah, our Father who art in heaven, above us, blessed, holy be your name. Your will, thy will be done. Thy will come on earth as it is in heaven. So as it is above, bring it so that it is as below. The Luciferians take that expression and they twist it and they pollute it, saying that effectively that as there's a higher above God, whatever, so we are gods also, in a sense, which is a partial truth, and that we are designed to be his children, so to speak, through not just our blood, okay? And what's powerful about that? A lot of people are just confident in like, if you're a Rothschild, you're a Rothschild, right? You're legally, you got the name, you're going to get an inheritance, you're part of the family. It doesn't matter how you live your life, so to speak. What does being a Rothschild, what is that supposed to embody? Is it supposed to be hardworking? Is it supposed to be a service to your community, service to the world, or is it just being a vampire bloodsucker? What is it? Is it just a name, just the blood? And so likewise, that applies to us in the sense of, as his children, he wants us not to just take our status as, let's say, you're born Israelite or Yahudim. Don't take confidence in the fact that you're just born of the 12 tribes or of one. Exemplify what it means to be Israel, Yisrael, to do his straightness. That's what Father wants from his creation, is to reflect his image, reflect his character, reflect his nature, which is established on love, truth, justice, and lawfulness, righteousness. Those are the 4 pillars of creation. When I am here stuck without transportation, without money, without heat, other than this heat, that I have been able to set up the stove and wood. This was outside, left covered up for years. I was able to bring it inside, and now I have heat. Otherwise, I wouldn't have heat. But for a sister who brought me an electric heater and has brought me food week after week, fed me. That is the kingdom of heaven. Taking care of one another. It's better to give than to receive. I have such a hard time asking for help because I love to give, but it's hard for me to ask for help. I don't want to be a imposition, but I also grew up in a situation where I never felt comfortable asking for anything because I saw my mom struggling. I saw my dad not taking care of us, and I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to be an imposition. But I can tell you that my life today, I have coffee, I have food, I have more warmth because of someone else's care and regard for me. And because of that, I have a better life. And having a better life is ultimately what heaven is about. Heaven is about us being in our ideal state and created in his image to live the fullness of life and to know him and to what? To have a great life, to have a great experience, to be like, wow, this is so amazing. Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful blessing that you've created, that you've given me to be alive. Thank you for this amazing water and the eagle and the fish and how like amazing this world is that we can create these beautiful dishes of food and share it with one another, and we can create a warm house and have warmth and even provide shelter for someone else. Thank you for this amazing gift. We're here to establish heaven on earth. And we can't do that without loving our Father, who is the source, and our brother. And we can't love our brother linearly, because in the most simple sense, when we look at someone linearly, we look at them, they represent potential competition. It's like Lot or Luth and Abraham, when Abraham said, hey, look, we're crowding each other. You can take this side or that side. Well, it says Lot took what he perceived as the better portion. Look where that led him, Sodom and Gomorrah. If he hadn't had Abraham, who would have gone and redeemed him or saved him from those kings that captured him and took his wealth and his property and his women and his children? It was a brother. We're our brother's keeper. So if this does get to Mark or any of his followers, his minions, the gift that we have to give is not just taking a bunch of his word and shoving it down somebody's throat. The gift that we have to give is to bring the kingdom of heaven to one another, and the principal way to do that is through love and to bless one another. And this idea of you getting to condemn your brother because you think you know something that he doesn't know is not it. And that's why I call you a cult until you repent. And end your drunkenness. I think that's all.